Sixto. There could not be a better name.
I love the names on this team. They have Sixto Sanchez, and they have my favorite name probably in baseball right now, Jazz Chisholm.
To win a championship, not only do you need great players on the court, but you need good chemistry, which takes time to develop.
It's weird how the dynamic works between sports, but
showing emotion in baseball is terrible and should never be in the game.
Blame Luke Walton for that. They have a lot of young players that I believe can really excel in this league.
Corey Perry will give some veteran presence to the Canadians and to just help give some insights on what he did last year.
Justin Fields is a all-time talent, and we definitely need to take into consideration his health.
This was a trade that the Senators really hope would work out, as Matt Murray has won the Cup 2 times.
Even though this is Mr. Irrelevant, he may be Mr. Playing Time after this season's over.
Just amazing, and I don't care what the Red Sox got for trading Mookie Betts and David Price. The Dodgers, in my opinion, win it. I don't have to see what players they gave up.
Charlie McAvoy also is, I think, a Norris contender, a top 5 Norris contender this year.
When Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones make jokes about not valuing the safety position, well, we can make jokes about you not being in Super Bowl for 20-something years, but
I feel like Luka will take that next step, and if he can get a 3 ball consistently around 35%, I feel like they could become a contender.
It just goes to show the offense for the Dallas Stars could not keep up, and when the defense needed to step up, the Lightning's offense just overpowered them.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
What's up, everyone? This is Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild and Lift the Mask, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NHL Power Rankings for our NHL Opinions of the Week for November 14th. Let us know what you've thought of the NHL season so far, as this is our first Power Rankings. And at number 32, no shocker here, we have the Arizona Coyotes, who have won just 2 games this year. So, but they're definitely a team for the future. And what are your thoughts on the Coyotes, Austin?
Yeah, we saw them sell away a lot of their players, OEL, Garland, a lot of players. They kept Chikrin and Clayton Keller, and that was about it. But their team's not looking good. They played 17 games, and like you said, only won 2. That's an ugly stat, and they're definitely the worst team in the league, and they aren't really excelling in much of anything. Wedgwood's starting to play better at goaltender. He has both of their wins, but they really don't have that many bright spots.
Now we move on to Seattle, who is definitely not reaching my expectations, as I thought they could be a sneaky playoff team. But they only have 4 wins, so that's 2 times more than what the Coyotes have, but still not what we expected from the Kraken, even though Grubauer was injured for a little bit, so that could affect it, but just not looking good for them right now.
Yeah, it's been an ugly season. They could turn it around. They have the players, they have the depth. It just depends whether or not they can get it done. They aren't a very high octane scoring team, but they're not a great defending team. Like, they're just mediocre across the board, but that can get it done, especially when you have Grubauer and Drieger, 2 good goaltenders back there. So they just got off to a bad start, but I could see them still turn it around. But it's gonna have to happen quick.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially with how tough that division is. Now we go to 30. We have the Senators, who have 4 wins as well, 10 losses. 10 and then 1 overtime loss. So they're in rebuilding, but just they haven't sold off a lot of players, because before last season they traded for Matt Murray from the Penguins. So you're sort of on the right track, but this is expected.
Yeah, and they're a team that many didn't know whether they were going to be good. I saw the hockey guy, who's a guy we watch a lot. He thought they may make a playoff push. I didn't really see that, and they're kind of stuck in the middle. Like, they were supposed to come out of the rebuild this year, but obviously they're still one of the worst teams in the league, so their GM and owner and everyone in management is going to have to review everything about it because they were supposed to be better than they are right now. And I don't blame anyone for thinking that they were going to make the playoffs or at least contend for it because they were not supposed to be this bad.
Now at number 29, we have the Canucks, who were doing well, and they made some nice moves this offseason, but still not really good. They did pay a lot of people the previous offseason, and then they got rid of a lot of those guys, such as Holtby, but just not. It's rough right now for Canucks fans. So, what are your thoughts on them right now?
Yeah. They made some, you call them good moves. They weren't bad moves, but they were questionable moves because in the future they're going to have cap issues. And that is always a bad thing for any general manager and team for that matter. They had to sign Pedersen and Hughes this offseason to get them out of the way, and they had to pay him big money. So they're going to have cap issues in the future. And the fact that they're still losing while having cap issues, that's never a good combination. Because if we look at the Senators and teams like that, they still have a lot of cap space. So if they need to make moves, they can, and they have a lot of leeway with that. But for teams like I just mentioned, the Canucks, who are playing bad with almost no cap space, it's not the best situation to be in.
Yeah, and now 28, we have the Blackhawks, who have only won 5 games, and they made a lot of big moves, such as trading for Fleury, trading away Keith, and bringing in, oh my gosh, why do I forget this defenseman's name?
Seth Jones?
Seth Jones. I blank on him. Trading for Seth Jones, giving a large contract to Seth Jones, who early on in the season he wasn't playing up to that contract. So they're at 28 right now. We've talked about the off the ice, how just terrible that is, but on the ice, it's also terrible for them, just playing wise.
Yeah, they have been playing better of recently. They're 5-4-1 in the last 10 games, so they're on the rise. They're probably the worst team in the league besides the Coyotes for a long part of the season, but they've turned it around. And it's early enough in the season where you can still make a playoff push, even if you're in the back half of the league, because of how much parity there are. How much parity there is in the league, and all the moves and trades and free agent pickups you can make. It's a long season, and despite their bad start, I still think they can turn it around and make a playoff push if everything goes right.
Yeah, that would definitely save our season predictions for that. And now we move on to the Canadians, who everyone's injured. Weber, um, Price is out, and just there's not much that this team can do. They've gone from being really high by making the Stanley Cup last year, and then they've just fallen off. It doesn't look like they can rebound, but who knows? I didn't believe in them much in the playoffs, and then they went on that miraculous run. So, what are your thoughts, Austin?
Yeah, this is another team with 5 wins. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10, but they're they're a team that has just beat the Predators today. So, and that's an impressive win that helps us level them up a little bit. But with all the injuries, all of the chaos, losing all of their leaders, it seems like the young guys are going to have to get it done. They just called back up Caulfield not too recently ago, who's a big part of their Stanley Cup uh, final run. And they're another team that I think could turn around, and I wouldn't be surprised necessarily if they did. However, with all these injuries, they would need a miracle to come all the way back.
Yes, they would. Now we go to the Islanders, who's a team that just not playing well. They have 5 wins, so they're a team that's done well in the playoffs, and I had a lot of high hopes for them, and it's just not working out for them right now.
Yeah, they just played their first home game today and lost. But I do think they will turn it around. I've seen some people not have them as far down because they've only been playing road games. But after today's loss at home, I just have to keep them here. Or this is our first power ranking, so I have to have them this low at 26 because I just don't see how I could have them higher. I do think they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be a cup hopeful, but just right now as they're playing, I can't have them higher.
Yeah, things can change in the NHL season. I hope this changes for the Stars as they are at number 25. They got their first OT win a few games ago. They have 6 wins, but goalie concerns as Holtby's out. Of course, you have Bishop, but just the offense just not really clicking sometimes for the Stars. What else do you have to add?
Yeah, the Stars are a team that everyone was kind of it was kind of a toss up. Like some people thought they were going to make a rebound back into the playoff picture after obviously making it to the finals back in 2020, or I guess that season. But this year they haven't gotten what they want, but they have a lot of older star players that definitely could turn it around. We've seen Holtby have great runs. We've seen Hudobin have great runs. If they bring back Ottinger or Bishop comes back, all of these goaltenders have proven to be successful at times. And same with all their players. They just have to get back in the groove. And I don't think they're another team that I still think can turn it around. As they've been mediocre this far in the season. They're currently leading the Blues as we record 2-1 right now, and they could go to 7-2 if they do win, but they're just mediocre.
Yeah, and now the Sabres have kind of gone back. They've come down from that high, and they are at 7 wins and 7 losses, and then 2 overtime losses. So kind of returning to where we thought they were, even after they trade Jack Eichel, and get some good players, they're just not playing well right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that loss, I would have had them higher if they didn't lose 5-0 to the Flames the other day. That really drew them down. They did not look competitive in that game at all. But they're definitely going to be higher than I expected. Again, I thought a goalie would have more wins than them this season, and they heard my prediction and are trying to make sure that I'm wrong. But yeah, they're 24th. I still have them above some teams, and I definitely thought we're going to make the playoffs, like the Islanders and the Chicago Blackhawks. But they're 7-2 average, and but they're on the down low. They're falling down as they're 3-6-1 in their last 10. So if they can turn it back up, they'll be up higher in our next power rankings. But right now they're just struggling.
Now at number 23, we have the Red Wings, who traded for Nedeljkovic in the offseason from Carolina. He made a good save a few games ago, but they're still in the rebuilding process. Even though they did trade for Nedeljkovic, he's a young player, so he still fits into that rebuilding plan. So it's just part of the process of rebuilding.
Yeah, and I've really been impressed by their fight. I saw it was a game against the Capitals, I believe. I sent you this video where they blocked 4 shots in one whole like minute span, and I just love the fight in this team. They're not that great, but they have a good amount of young players. Raymond, who's playing very well. I mean, they have a lot of good young players. I like Suter. I like Raymond. I like a lot of these guys, and I think in the future they're going to be a team to contend with. Uh, and it just takes a while for the young guns to get it going. There's a lot of there's a big learning curve in the NHL, especially when it comes to winning. But I think they have the right man behind the job.
Then at number 22, we have the New Jersey Devils, who've kind of similar. They're in a weird spot. Like some people had them as a playoff team, some didn't. I think I had them close to the playoffs. What are your thoughts on them right now?
Yeah, they're 8-5-3, but they've only won 8 of their 16 games, and I've really just not been impressed. They lost earlier, not too long ago, to the Bruins twice, I believe, and they just I need to see more out of them for me to have them higher. They haven't impressed me, but they haven't not impressed me, and I just need to see more consistency out of their health department because Hughes has been out for a while, and they obviously had Mackenzie Blackwood out at the beginning of the season for a good bit. But also, I just need to see more team chemistry. I mean, I know they signed Dougie Hamilton in the offseason, and it takes a while for a team to get acclimated to their new players, but it's going to be that's going to really matter whether or not they're going to make the playoffs or not, is how they gel by the time the season ends.
Now at number 21, we have the Penguins, who are 6-6-4. What are your thoughts on them right now?
A lot of injuries. Malkin's coming back soon, I hope. Crosby just got back. He had his first goal of the season not too long ago, or first assist of the season not too long ago. First point, I guess. But It's just their team's not been healthy, and the reason why I have them higher than the Devils is a little bit out of hope, which it's our first power rankings, so I guess we can do that. But I just think that their consistency, they haven't missed the playoffs in a very long time. They have good star players who are coming back from injury and are starting to get it going. So I think by the next time our power rankings roll around, they'll be in the top half of the league record wise.
Now at number 20, we have the San Jose Sharks, who are 8-7-1. Little unexpected. What has surprised you so far?
Yeah, they had a long stretch there where a lot of guys were out with COVID. Obviously, we've seen Ottawa, who's having their next 3 games postponed because of COVID situations. The Sharks had a lot of guys out with COVID, and the fact that they won, they were competitive in a lot of those games, and the fact that they're still above 500 and now have everyone back, and I think they could make a playoff push. They have a good amount of veterans who have made it to the playoffs and made it far. Carlson, Burns, Couture, a lot of players. So I just feel like they can turn it around now that everyone's back and healthy, or most people are back and healthy.
Now at number 19, we have the Golden Knights, who were doing well so far. Well, they have 10 wins, 7 losses, but we just have them at 19, and you'll explain why, Austin.
Yeah, another team I just need to see consistency out of. Vegas has been a very hot and cold team, and I want to see them place themselves higher than this because they are 7-3 in their last 10, which is impressive. However, they had a very bad stretch right before that, and then they had a good stretch, and then they had a bad stretch, and it just seems like they're inconsistent. And I don't want to rate them too high based on their last 10 because they still have a lot of injuries. Pacioretty's still out. Obviously, Eichel will be out for a very long time, and I know they got Stone back, but if they are pretty good in their next 5 games, I'll definitely have them in the top probably 12. But they just need to prove that this isn't a fluke. That this winning ways these last 10 games aren't gonna the next 10 games go back to 3-7. So I just need to see consistency.
And now we have the Predators, who are 7-2-1 their last 10, and they have 9 wins and 6 losses on the season. So, what are your thoughts on them right now?
Yeah, it's actually 9-7-1 now that they lost today. But I have them higher because of their last 10 and because I think it's more sustainable. They're a more healthy team. And I know it seems weird as Vegas is a title contender, but I don't know how the injury situation is going to work out. I don't know if Eichel's going to come back and be 100%. Same thing with Pacioretty. Stone's looking good, but he could get hurt again. There's a lot of injury concerns, and I like the Predators' defense. Their defense has always been excelling, and they look like they're scoring more. Saros is playing well, and even though they lost tonight, uh, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they're another good team that makes the playoffs.
Yeah, we could see that happen. Now we go to 17, the Avalanche, who are definitely, they need to go far in the playoffs, but they're just not playing well right now as they have 8 wins, 5 losses, and 1 overtime loss. They're 7-2-1 and are currently on a 4-game winning streak. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they've been impressive in their last 10, and they look like after they're getting everybody back that they're going to look good. McKinnon's been out for his fair share of games, but they're continuing to win them. And the only reason why they're below this team that is right above them is because they lost to this team back to back, one in their stadium and one back in Colorado. But I like the way they're turning the page, and it seems like they're going to get on a run soon.
And that team at 16 is the Blue Jackets, who traded Seth Jones in the offseason, but they have 9 wins, 5 losses, and are currently 6-4 in their last 10.
Yeah, they're looking good. I know Merzlikins, it just seems like he is kind of coming into his own. Corpusalo, who had that great playoff game back in the 2020 playoffs, isn't really playing as good, but I like Merzlikins. Elvis is good, and I like how the scoring's coming from everywhere. Bjorkstrand's playing good. They need to get Line A back healthy, and Domi's playing better as he's coming back from injury. But I'm excited to see how this team works out. They're a team full of fighters, and they have been for their entire existence, and that doesn't change now.
Yeah, they're a team that I was high on before, and now at number 15 we have the LA Kings, who have 8 wins, 7 losses, 2 overtime losses, but are 7-2-1 their last 10. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they've lost 2 straight, but I've really liked how they look on that. I think it was a 6 or 7 game winning streak and like an 8 game point streak. They're just been impressive, and they still have injuries to their defense, a lot of them, and Doughty's not back, and a lot of guys aren't back. So once they get their themselves healthy, I don't see who can stop them in the short term. So they've been impressive lately, and I really like their goaltending. Quick's playing better than Pedersen, which is impressive. Or Peterson, yeah, Peterson. But it's been impressive seeing how Quick is kind of turned back into old Quick. Not 100%, but he's looking better as season goes along.
And now at number 14, we have the Winnipeg Jets, who proved me wrong last postseason, and they're at 14 right now. What are your thoughts on them right now?
Yeah, they had a bad loss the other day to the Canucks, but they really do look like they're turning it around. Hellebuck's having a resurgent season after having not the best playoffs last year. He's looking good. Shifley's obviously playing well. Uh, Connor's playing amazing. They just have a lot of guys that are just getting it back together, and if they can get some of those players that aren't playing particularly well and can get their defense back to 100%, I feel like they'll have a solid run.
Now at number 13, we have the Blues, who, as you reported, were currently losing to the Dallas Stars 2-1. Hopefully nothing's changed. But the Blues started off well. They are currently 9-5-2, 4-4-2 in their last 10, but they're on a winning streak of one game, so they won their last game. And they're just a team that, even with the Tarasenko rumors, they still want to make it into the playoffs and go far in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, the only reason why they are this low is because of that loss to Arizona. Being one of their losses and also being 500 technically in their last 10, 4-4-2, like you mentioned, it just doesn't paint them in as good a light. I'm going to say that that was a fluke and that won't happen again, but we'll find out as they're in the same division, so they'll play again.
Yeah. So now we move on to the Philadelphia Flyers, who did not have a good season last year, but currently they have 8 wins, 4 losses, and 3 overtime losses, and they lost their last game in OT. What has surprised you so far?
Yeah. They're a team that their goaltending's kind of what's carried them to this point, and that really was not expected going into the season. Carter Hart's looked very good, and I've been very impressed by a good portion of their players. Their defense has gotten better by the addition of Ellis over the offseason, which I really liked, and that's really what's carried them to this point: defense and goaltending. So they look like a team on the rise, and every other year they seem to make the playoffs. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did this season.
And a team that was in their division last year was the Boston Bruins, who is your team. They're just on the outside of the top 10 as they are in number 11, and they have a record of 8-5 and 6-4 in their last 10. What are your thoughts on your team?
Yeah, technically they're 9-5 because they today beat the Flyers, which is why I have the Bruins above the Flyers. So the Flyers lost to the Bruins today, so I bumped the Bruins one place over the Flyers. The Flyers lost 5-2, which means the Bruins won 5-2, and the Bruins have gotten off to a weird start. It's inconsistent, but they're beating the teams they should beat, and that'll always get you into the playoffs if you beat the teams worse than you, uh, and you continue to be competitive against those above you. So I feel like their scoring is going to continue to rise as Taylor Hall gets back into the flow of things, and obviously the quote unquote perfection line continues on its run. So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if this is a team that contends. I obviously in my preseason predictions had them as a team that makes the conference finals, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, we'll have to see. Now at number 10, we have the Rangers, the young New York Rangers, who are just on the outside of the playoffs, mostly because of their just how their division was built and how good it was. But they're a team that I think we both believe can be on the rise, and they are at 10 win. They're at 10-4-3, and our last 10 are 6-2-2. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, the Rangers have been a team that have impressed a lot of people. I've been more impressed about Shesterkin and his consistent play uh, over this season. He had not the greatest start not too long ago, but he's turning back up and is looking to be the goaltender that we saw at the beginning of the season. He obviously had like a 952 save percentage or something at some point in the season, but it's come back down to earth a little bit. But good goaltending will always get you far during any season in any league. Uh, and that's proven true with the Rangers, who are starting to get their scoring back together.
Yep, and now we are at number 9, the Calgary Flames, who are at 9-3-5, and are 4-2-4 in their last 10.
Yeah, the Flames are a team that have really been a resurgence. Blake Coleman has played well. They won today over the Islanders in New York. And the Islanders, like I said, first game at home. They've been good. I've really liked Markstrom and his play. He's come really back to what he looked like when he was in Vancouver for a long time there. And the Flames look like a team back in 2019 when they obviously had Mark Giordano, who's now obviously in Seattle. So even though they lost their captain, their leader, their scoring has picked up, and I've really liked how Majapani's played, and a lot of their players on their team has just been impressive.
Speaking of scoring, we can talk about the Capitals, who have Ovechkin and just an old team, and they're performing well right now. As we have them at number 8, and they have a record of 10-2-5 or 6-2-2 in their last 10. I think I add an extra 2 in there. But what are your thoughts on them right now?
Yeah, they've been good. They seem to either win or they lose in overtime. They're 10-2-5, like you said, and that's weird because they've won 10 of 17 games, but they also have only lost 2 in regulation, which is just a weird stat to look at. But Ovechkin, he's been amazing. There's nothing else you can really say. He's looking like the old Ovechkin all over again, and Kuznetsov's also playing well, and their defense is playing well, and goaltending is doing good, but they just need to turn it around to where they start winning these games in overtime more than they're losing them. And I would definitely have them higher if they start doing that.
Now we have at number 7, we have Tampa Bay Lightning without Kucherov, who is on the LTIR for right now, and so we will definitely be keeping an eye out on that. But it's they have a good team, and of course you have one of the best goalies in Vasilevsky, and their record is 9-4-3. Last 10 though, they're 7-1-2.
Yeah, they just another team that's really defied expectations because of all the players they lost. I feel like a lot of players, I mean, a lot of people did not see them having the same amount of fight, but they have, again, they're in their last 10, 7-1-2, very impressive, and their goal scoring is picked up without Kucherov and all these other guys who are hurt or left or retired or anything. It just seems like they're coming back to what the Lightning have been the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, and now at number 6, we have the Anaheim Ducks, who very surprising to have them in the top 10, just out of the top 5. What's your explanation?
Yeah, Getzloff, he's having a resurgent season. 1 goal, 18 assists in 18 games. Very impressive. Troy Terry on a tear this season. He one of the best players in the league to start out this season, and that's not something that anyone would really say before the season began. John Gibson, great goaltender, always has been, always seems to always will be, and that's how you have a winning formula. Have good goaltending. Shattenkirk's played very well for them. He led the all defensemen in scoring for a time there. I don't think he does anymore, but he did for a very long time there. And I've really been impressed by this team's wherewithal, and they continue to win games that they probably shouldn't.
Now at number 5, we have the Minnesota Wild, who are at 11 wins, 6 losses, 6-4 in their last 10. And of course, they scored a touchdown against the Dallas Stars. They just have a great offense with Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Greenway, and just Talbot at goalie has really helped them. And it's with Kaprizov, which is why we waited so long in our power rank, in our season predictions. He really changes this team and just how lethal they are on offense.
Yeah, Erickson X played very well. Their goaltending has played well with Talbot, Spurgeon, Dumba, all their defense. It's just everything's clicking right now, and they're looking like one of the best teams in the West. And I'm not really surprised by that. As in my predictions, I really had them going far.
Yes, you have been really high on the Wild the past year, um, over the span of 2 seasons. Now we go to the Maple Leafs. No surprise here of them being a good regular season team, as they have 12 wins, 5 losses, and 1 overtime loss. And then their last 10, they're 9-1. So what can you talk about the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, they actually lost today, so they're 12-6-1. They lost to the Penguins today, which is why the Penguins got a bump over some of the teams. But the Maple Leafs have had a really bad start to the season, but have really turned it on recently. And having an 8-2 in their last 10 now, it's good. And a lot of people were worried because if you're not going to have a good regular season, you can't make the playoffs. They can't turn around in the playoffs. But like you said, will they stay consistent this time? Will they be as good as they are in the regular season in the playoffs? Well, we'll see when it comes time for that to come around. When it becomes April, we'll see. Can Toronto continue to be a good team when it comes to playoff time? When the goals, the saves, everything actually matters the most.
Now we move on to the top three. And number three, we have the Edmonton Oilers with 12-4. In the last 10, they are 7-3. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, the Oilers, Draisaitl, McDavid. Not much else to say. I've been very, very impressed by everything that they've been able to do. Their defense has been surprisingly good. Their goaltending's been good. And McDavid, man, same thing with Draisaitl. You can't stop them, and no one really can right now. And that's nothing new. They're another team that has to get it done in the playoffs. Last year, they didn't even win a game in the playoffs, as you had them sweeping the Jets, but instead the Jets swept them. So they're an interesting team that needs to prove themselves to be a playoff contender.
Yeah, and they, of course, need to balance more, as you do have McDavid, but they need to focus on more. And at number two, we have the Florida Panthers, who are just playing so well right now with 3 wins, 13 wins, 2 losses, 3 overtime losses. Final 10, last 10 games are at 5-2-3. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they're really close between them and the team at number one, but the Panthers, I really like Spencer Knight in net. Bobrovsky should come back from injury good. Barkov, Huberdeau, everybody. It's just Carter Verhaeghe, Aaron Ekblad. They just have Mackenzie Weegar. I could go on forever. They obviously picked up Joe Thornton in the offseason, traded for Sam Reinhart. I just really like this team, and they're definitely one of the best teams in the league. And they're another team that has to prove that they can win a playoff series, but it's looking easier and easier as we go up the board.
And now a team that I didn't have much faith in, and if you've been doing the math right, it is the final team we have is the Carolina Hurricanes with a new pair in net, but some young players with like Sebastian Aho. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I really like this team. Frederick Anderson is playing very good. Obviously, they picked up some guys during the offseason. They picked up Kakaniemi. They obviously lost Dougie Hamilton, but they made some good moves. And I've really been it's been amazing to watch. After they got rid of Nedeljkovic, I was really confused on how this team was going to continue to move forward, but it's looking good. And Rob Bridgemore definitely has his team looking pretty or sitting pretty right now in the season. As their point percentage is .875, which is very impressive.
Wow. Yeah, made some questionable decisions in my view of what they did, but it's paying off for them right now, and that's why they're number one in our first ever power rankings this season. Let us know what you thought of our power rankings in the comments. Feel free to tweet us at OutsidersPod21. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.